Welcome to Take 5, the place where the leaders in the association landscape come for inspiration and insights. Here's your host, the CEO and CSO of Minding Your Business, Max Suzenaar.
All right, welcome to Take 5 Live. I'm Max Suzenaar. We're excited to continue our conversations about the modernization of associations. And today we're going to be talking about reimagining and reinvesting in your largest asset, your annual meeting. Really an exciting topic. I know that a lot of transition is happening in the marketplace today. So let's talk about what we mean first by your annual meeting being your largest asset. Now, we understand, obviously, that an annual meeting obviously contributes a great deal of revenue to the association. And, we need to be very member-centric in terms of how we're thinking about it. But we also need to think about, again, your association as well as your annual meeting are a brand. So the association is promising you high levels of education and networking, et cetera. But we need to ensure it's your visible spot to demonstrate value to all your constituents, and that's your members and non-members that are there. So it's really incredible. We see that, that's why we can't do, as I mentioned in their teaser, you can't do a shampoo, rinse, and repeat. We need to be thinking proactively, continuously. So this is going to be the new norm of continuous improvement, continuous beta testing, and expanding what we've currently done in the past. Now, whether your attendance is flat, decreasing, or even if it's increasing, to be proactive, I think there are very valuable tips and thoughts and strategies that we'll be discussing today. Attendees' expectations are changing. I know you're all faced with that. It's incredible. There's a lot of demand and there's a lot of diverse segments that we need to appease and provide value to. So what I'd like to do first is introduce my partner, John Folks, who is going to be joining us today. John, what are the biggest trends that you see that are impacting meetings today?
Well, thanks, Max. And hello, everybody. There are a lot of trends, obviously, out there that are impacting meetings today. Technology, of course, is one of the biggest issues that is really impacting every aspect of our lives, and meetings is no exception. A lot of things that are happening from the consumer standpoint are impacting meetings and consumer perceptions and demands and expectations.
Yeah, and I guess you could say, in reality, attendees are consumers. So
they
we
are.
need to look at them in that
That's
vein.
right, and I think that's a good litmus test by which to start to look at your attendees. They are consumers, they are customers of yours, and how do we make sure that we're delivering to them what it is that they want? And I think that's probably leads to the largest trend that we're seeing, and probably the most challenging trend for organizations to deal with, is this expectation for customization. Your attendees today expect a personalized experience, something that is designed around their needs, what they need today, delivered in a way that they want it, at the level that they want it delivered, right? So that's challenging, and it forces us to think very differently now about how we design an event. It's really got to be designed around the needs of that attendee. So it's more of an attendee-centric designing process, curation model, etc. So,
well, what are some examples? Like, what are you referencing?
Yeah, so, we have to start with understanding why people are attending, why they're coming to your meeting, right? What is it that they're looking for? And really understanding granularly, you kind of referenced earlier this whole segmentation process, right? That our attendees are not just either physicians and non-physicians and exhibitors, but really within those communities, there are micro communities that we have to address, micro segments that have different kinds of needs. So really understanding why each of those groups of people are attending, where are they finding value? And of course, that takes research, right? We have to understand who they are, what they want, and how they want it. And it's not just about, are they a young professional or an international or a female participant, a professional, but it goes deeper than that, right? So for example, a younger professional might be coming because they are looking for some basic skills training. They might be coming to look for a job. They might be coming looking for a mentor. A mid-career professional in your industry might be coming because they're looking for advanced skills. Maybe they're looking for leadership training because they're trying to move up the ladder. So that kind of education might be something that they'd be more interested in. They also may be hitting a lull in their career, as many are in many professions. They may be looking to get re-energized about the industry again. So how do we help do that and provide that to them? A researcher might be coming to look for other people who are researching similar areas and not finding that anywhere else. So a lot of different, but understanding why those people are coming, who they're looking to connect with, what kind of information, topics, learning, knowledge they're trying to get is going to be really important to help us then design something that they really will find helpful, valuable, and keep them coming back again.
Sure. And it speaks to the fact that we need to understand essentially different value propositions. Now, there'll be an overarching one, obviously, on behalf of the association or organization, but those value propositions, like what is important, what is of value. And, I can't stress enough that one of the things that I find surprising is that we don't always understand what that is, number one. And number two, the role of the association, in addition to curating for those different levels and different needs, is also to bring new knowledge to the table. Like, I can't emphasize it enough. Like, I don't know what I don't know. I should be gaining some sort of insights or knowledge or new awareness of something I should be digging into from that experience.
Well, I think you bring up an interesting point, and I think that lends itself to this whole concept of, creating an event, an experience that is transformative. You want people to be transformed as a result of being at your meeting, because if I come to a meeting or an event and I attend sessions and I make connections and I go to the trade show floor and experience all of this, you would expect that I would leave a different person. Now, I'm not talking about a completely different person, but that obviously that I've got new knowledge, I've got new awareness, I've got new resources, I've got new solutions, hopefully. And hopefully I'm inspired.
Yeah, and I think we brought up like the attendee experience and the exhibitor experience. I mean, that is of incredible value.
Yeah.
So we need to focus in on that. So customization, I get it. That's a very challenging scenario. And I just want to pause for a second. I want to offer up, keep in mind, you can submit questions along the way. We're going to go through this and then we'll have time for some Q&A at the end. We're also going to poll because we're having to talk very broadly and big picture about these challenges and some of the solutions. And we're going to poll you so future episodes of Take 5 Live will drill down more specifically on various questions. So let's continue. So one key element that an annual meeting provides is networking. And I think that has been way overlooked. I think it's been kind of a, okay, we're going to set up a networking lounge or whatever. And I feel like that's a missed opportunity that there's becoming demand and part of the value proposition. What can you tell me about that?
Well, I think that networking is an interesting concept, right? We use that term to describe what it is that, to bring people together, essentially. But it's a very generic term that I think has a lot of definitions to different people. So, for example, networking to me as a young professional may mean I'm looking for a job or I'm looking for a mentor.
And by the way, you're not a young professional. So maybe you should use past tense of what that was. Sorry, go ahead.
But I think that, networking maybe for that researcher we were talking about earlier is finding someone who's doing research in that same area and understanding that, my networking and your networking may be different, have different goals, right? If I'm a senior level person or I've been coming to this annual meeting for many, many years, I'm probably coming to see my buddies and my friends and people, my peers, all the people that I've known throughout my career, right? This is kind of my reunion, if you will. If I'm a younger professional, I may be coming to expand my network, to meet new people, et cetera. So
if we start to understand what some of those motivations or key drivers for people are, so what do we do about it?
Well, I think that number one, we've got to think a little bit differently about how what our role is in providing opportunities for people to connect together.
Okay.
Right. So taking on the role of the catalyst for connections, that the organizer of the event really needs to be more thoughtful and deliberate about helping you and helping me connect with the people that I want to connect with.
And so it's more facilitated.
It's a facilitated, that's right. Facilitated networking, I think, is really the kind of the theme of the future when we talk about events and meetings. And I think it's not only bringing people together around the traditional ways that we have. So, for example, in the past, many of you probably have lounges on your trade show floor or special areas for young professionals or female professionals or international attendees. And those can be very effective. One example was, we worked with a medical association where they had a young professionals lounge, a young doctors lounge that was very underutilized. No one really ever went in there. They thought it was something that they should probably just get rid of. And through our research, we found out that young professionals, young MDs, really wanted access to thought leaders, to those physicians who were really, kind of the big names in the industry. So what we did was we helped them create new programming around that, in that young MD's lounge, which drew them in. So they did, short programming. They did Q&A sessions. We had just, kind of table time for them to come in and ask questions, etc. It became incredibly popular, and it really drove a lot of engagement and value for those young professionals.
So you actually brought some of the subject matter experts in. So one of the things, again, that I think is very underutilized, and because I'm someone who does a lot of presentations, when you are someone who's a presenter and is trying to share knowledge, number one, you also gain knowledge from those people you interact with. But if I have a presentation, I'm more than willing to participate in a conversation after the conversation.
Yeah, right.
And I think that is so underutilized. Don't just leave it to me to go up and hand my business card to the presenter at the end. Like, provide those other opportunities where we can get more granular, where you can ask customized questions about what your specific needs, concerns, interests are.
Well, I think that's an interesting thought too. And not every single person who's sitting in that main session, right, wants to raise their hand and admit that they don't know the answer to a particular question. So, or they're just not comfortable in a big environment asking a question. So to be able to provide those venues, a little bit more intimate, where someone could have a one-on-one conversation, that they could ask a question that they might not want to ask in the, in a large group format, is also really, I think, very valuable.
Well, sure, and there's obviously confidential information that they probably have that they just, they're being respectful of as well.
I think this is an area too that we can help to bring people together, to connect people, not only around kind of demographic issues, right? Who I am, but some of the solutions, the challenges, the questions that I have. And I think that's where the networking of the future is going to go. And this is really where organizations and meeting hosts can really help. So creating opportunities to bring people together around those common challenges is another great way to help create community, to build these kind of connections that are much more valuable and meaningful to people. Because most people are coming to meetings looking for solutions, right? I'm looking for resources, I'm looking for solutions, looking for answers to my challenges every day.
Sure, no, that makes a lot of sense.
So if we can create networking around some of those common areas, those common challenge areas. So, there's a lot of technology tools now that are out there, things like, and many of you have probably used something called Brain Data, or kind of experimented with some of those things. Many of your meeting apps today have opportunities to make connections around not only demographic considerations, but also around topics and challenges, et cetera. Activating those sometimes are the challenge, right? How do we get people to fill out the profile and to engage with some of these tools? And I think this is where we have to get a little more creative, provide incentives, and start to get people really engaged with some of these tools, because they will add value. We have to figure out how to get people engaged and change their own behaviors to get them to start to use some of these tools as well. Mm-hmm. If technology is not one of those areas that your group is really embracing, there's things like small topic lounges and creating these smaller, more intimate learning environments where people can come together for facilitated conversations, or in some cases unfacilitated conversations around certain topics, specialty areas, challenges, case studies, etc. These have been enormously successful. And we're also finding that people like to be in smaller environments to learn as well. So I think there's a lot of different, one group that we had worked with actually started something called, we had actually worked with them to kind of create some early morning sessions. We found out that their people wanted more opportunities to roll up their sleeves and talk about challenging cases. So we created some early morning sessions called Coffee and Case Studies, where we had continental breakfast and people were able to come at round tables. We had specific difficult cases that people could talk about. They were facilitated and they were incredibly successful. So successful that they extended it to the end of the day. And they started something called Cocktails and Case Studies. So they had an open bar.
I like that one much better.
Yeah,
I prefer the cocktails and case studies.
So there's a lot of creative ways, anyway, that we can bring people together that don't all have to be in traditional environments. They don't have to be traditional formats. But again, bringing people around the topics that are keeping them up at night.
Got it. 2 points to that too. One is that, and I like to call it networking with intent, meaning I planned it. And so just as you have these committees that are curating content, I think that it's really important that there are those folks that focus on curation of the networking. And so if you're going to focus in on young professionals, for example, why not have a group, and dare I say a committee, be the ones that actually design and facilitate what that networking with intent or facilitated networking could look like. So they're the ones that are tasked with and living with, these are the types of things that we'd like. And then again, curating different presenters, et cetera, to have that meeting after the meeting with them. The other thing I just want to bring up too is I think that there's also this trend to mindfulness and balance. And listen, I'm raising my hand. My life is probably not nearly as balanced as it should be. And I love and passionate about our profession and the work that we're doing and our clients. But, that mindfulness, and sometimes I get incredible inspiration going to a meeting, and then I take all sorts of notes, I'm inspired, and then I get back and I'm just like, oh my God, the hamster wheel continues. And so if I knew that there was time and a dedicated space where I could refocus in quietly on a presenter I just heard or a specific topic, I would find that really fantastic. And oh, by the way, I'd love to be getting a massage while that's happening, a chair massage, but I'm just saying, I think that we have to allow for that mindfulness and start incorporating that.
We do. And related to that too, I think that, not only mindfulness and again, being able to unplug, those are some of the things also as we look at, content, because if we, the other big area, of course, is content, education, delivery. That is the other big reason why people are coming. Obviously, they're looking for those answers and those resources. But when we talk about specifically around education and content delivery and format, there is a lot more information now out, research done about how adults learn. And I think that, being aware of that, there's neuroscience about how we learn, how we pay attention, how we engage. And I think some of that really is important as we look at, kind of our traditional agendas, how we're designing the content and the delivery of that content.
Sure.
Many of you, I'm sure, are very aware of the fact that some of this research is that, again, adult learning, we learn best in shorter snippets. The research that's out today is that adults' learning span is about 20 minutes. And so anything beyond that, you're rolling the dice. And of course,
and we've been on for 20 minutes, so I guess we're rolling the dice.
We're rolling the dice right now. Is everyone paying attention? But I think, a great example of that is that's worked very well is TED, right? Those TED Talks, the maximum length of a TED Talk is 18 minutes, right? So it's underneath that number, that 20-minute number, to make sure that, again, we're maximizing the attention span of people.
Great. I want to talk about something, the advanced content. Like, I have always been baffled why there are not levels of content. I mean, you go to college, there are different levels.
101, 201,
yeah,
301,
and so I'm
right.
just astounded at how little of that there is.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, as someone who presents, makes it very challenging because you kind of have to baseline to a simpler level because you don't know who the audience is going to be.
Yep.
And so it prohibits being able to talk in more advanced ways to those people that are seeking more advanced content. So
Well, I think you're right. And I think that understanding, again, that goes back to kind of where we started. Understanding who your audience is and what it is that they're looking for and at what level they're looking at it for. So
well, it just makes sense to me.
Yeah.
I mean, if someone's been mid-career or beyond, I need to know that I'm with people that like-minded. So if I'm sitting in a session for 60 minutes or 40 minutes or whatever it is, I'm really with peers that are at that same level. So
Yeah.
I can consume and get fueled by something that's more advanced.
Yeah, and I would say, Max, too, that I think what our experience is that we've seen programming that is multi-level, but what we've also seen is it's not necessarily labeled as such, so that you don't understand necessarily as the attendee or the registrant what sessions are going to be basic or basic skills versus advanced skills, et cetera. So I think part of that challenge is making sure that not only are we providing that different kinds of content at different levels, but also making sure that we are labeling it such that people can easily find so that the expectations are met. When you're registering, when you're attending that session.
Okay, great. Very quickly too, the curation method, we're seeing a lot more crowdsourcing, et cetera. So talk about that just a little bit.
Well, I think the rise in crowdsourcing is as a result of this whole change in perception of we've got to create a program that is now attendee-centric. It is no longer a program that is designed by a small group, a program committee, a small group of, say, thought leaders that are, for lack of a better term, dictating what it is that the rest of the membership or the profession should be learning about, right? Many of you have, call for abstracts, et cetera. But this is a little bit different in that you're going out to your membership, to your attendee base, prospective attendee base, to not only gather what are the topics, the hot topics, the issues, the things, again, that are keeping them up at night, to make sure that the program is really well balanced and also focused around what they want to hear about and what they want to talk about. It's also a great opportunity for you to start surfacing other thought leaders. We hear time and time again.
It's the same
people presenting the same thing every year.
Right.
And so how do we refresh that?
And at competitive conferences, I've seen the same people. So, I mean,
how do you create unique content?
Absolutely.
Start to showcase new thought leaders and certainly make sure that you are developing a program with topics that people really want and need. So
fantastic. Very quickly, fun interactive formats, like fun ideas like Shark Tank. And I mean, why not get people pumped up?
No, I think that's great. And I think, Shark Tank is something we've seen work really well, especially because there's a trend out there right now that, not right now, but a trend that has been picking up steam, I think, that, people come to meetings because they want something new. They want innovation. They want to see what's new and what's next in their profession and their industry. Shark Tank is a great vehicle to showcase some of the new things that are happening, the new inventions, the new research, the new tools and resources that are out there for your profession. And it's a fun way to do it. Obviously the show's been enormously successful. And we've seen, we have a medical association we work with that's just launched this whole thing. They had about 4,000 people in their inaugural Shark Tank session.
Wow.
Showcasing 5 or 6 different...
I think, again, goes back to what you said earlier, this consumer mentality. Like, people want stimulation. They want, energy. They want,
another great format for energy creation is the Great Debate.
Love it.
And many of you may have experimented with this, but a great way to take a topic that is perhaps not crystal clear. It may be an ethical issue. It may be a design issue. It may be an engineering problem. We've seen it work in a lot of different fields and work really well. One group takes one side of the issue and the other. We see the audience get very engaged in this as well. So that's really fun.
It is fun, and it sparks new thinking. One of my favorite examples was we beta tested this probably 5 years ago with association executives in DC, and John Graham, who of course is the president and CEO of ASAE, was on the topic was the future of associations, and he was on the kind of the death to association side of the argument. And it's interesting because it's provocative, and it forces you to think, and on the flip side, how to come up and be more innovative. I want to move on because we're running a little bit short on time.
I can't imagine that.
The whole concept of an exhibit hall and what's taking place. Obviously, a lot of transformation, a lot of concepts of turning it into a hub. I like to refer to it as the great room in your house. So that's where everyone comes to congregate for everything, for eating, for networking, for hanging out, whatever that is. From a professional standpoint.
Yeah, actually, absolutely. And I think that, many of our participants today probably are experiencing this kind of lull in energy levels in the exhibit hall. They're trying to create ROI for their exhibitors, trying to make sure that they get attendees down there. So the goal really is to get people to come down more often and stay longer, right? So how do we do that? How do we create more energy? How do we give them more reasons to come down? And many are experimenting and exploring putting more content on the floor. And that can be informal, pods that we talked about earlier. It can be product theaters, so you're engaging your exhibitors in showcasing some of that. We talked about that Shark Tank concept, but what about providing an opportunity for several similar services or products to go one after the other? Attendees then get a chance to vote on that. Again, creating more engaging opportunities on that trade show floor. Ways to use your meeting app, gamification to get people to not only come to the floor for that food, that break, but also to engage with exhibitors, because that's really where the value is with the exhibitor community, right? We've got to create reasons for them to connect with each other. Encouraging our exhibitors to do more immersive, more interactive exhibit booths so that people come in and maybe it's virtual reality or there's some sort of opportunity for them to engage with their product or service in a different way. But on your mobile app today, there's now lots of opportunities to actually create gamification. So, things like again, people love to answer questions, and so QR codes we've seen work, where you have a series of questions that you go up to a specific exhibit booth, you scan the QR code, a question comes up, you have to answer it to get the point, and then you move on to another QR code that's at another booth. And in some cases, you have to ask the exhibitor to help you solve this case, this problem. So it's a great opportunity for them to learn, for them to see the exhibitor as perhaps a resource or a knowledge source.
Well, and my gosh, a lot of the exhibitors are in multiple, obviously, trade shows and exhibit halls. So they've seen and experienced a lot too. I want to be mindful of time. I know there's a question that's pending, but very quickly, I love this idea just that I want to talk about. We know all about, we won't get into the research and the data, the analytics, and I know the supplier community is doing a lot. There's a lot of movement to help us be more in tune and have the demographics, behavioral data. We're doing research to find attitudinal data, but I love just this simple concept of the festivalization.
It's a mouthful.
It's a mouthful.
Yeah. What
do we mean by that?
So it's another one of the big trends that are happening, and it's really borrowing these ideas from big consumer events and concerts, and pulling some of the best of that into meetings and events. So, for example, when you think about the fact that, since Napster and all of these music sharing sources, right, where we can get music, all kinds of music, essentially for free, and yet we have seen an astronomical rise in the number of music festivals that people have to pay to go to, live events. Billboard magazine, I just read recently, said there's over 800 music festivals in the United States every year now.
Wow.
That's an increase of over 50% over the last 10 years.
Wow.
It's significant, and people are paying for it, right? How do we take some of the energy, the inspiration that is generated as a result of these music festivals, and create some of that same, and bring some of that at our meetings and our events? we were at a ideation session with a client just this week. And they have a big trade show. We were ideating around how do we create more energy on the trade show floor. And one of the ideas that came out was, let's bring a DJ down. Let's create more energy. Let's bring music. Let's bring a DJ down. The group all loved it. Now, this group of engineers, you wouldn't think that they'd necessarily glom onto that idea. But again, it's thinking a little bit differently about the environment.
And as a consumer, what would you want to experience?
The other aspect, just one other aspect about festivalization is not only utilizing the convention center and the headquarter hotels, but really activating your event around the city using non-traditional event venues, etc. Think South by Southwest when we think about festivalization, right? Activation throughout the city. It gives people an opportunity to really experience an immersive event, one that is really, truly utilizing the best assets of the city that you're in, and all those venues as well. So
fantastic. Listen, I know we're at time. What I'd like to do, we've got one question, so we're going to go just a little bit longer to make sure we respond to that question. For those of you who need to drop off, I'd like to swap out, Scott, to our polling. If we could do our polling quickly, because we'd love to know if you could quickly weigh in on what other topics that you would be interested in hearing more about, so we can dedicate more time to them. So there's a list here. You'll see it if you go to the polling, and you can select everything from networking, designing immersive experiential learning environments, data-driven marketing, etc. So feel free to please vote. I see that there's some movement happening there, which is great.
I'd like to learn more about every one of those things.
I'm sure. They're interesting topics. So for now, as I said, we're going to continue on, but for those of you that are going to need to leave us right now, I just would like to say thank you, number one, for joining us. Number two, would like to also say, please feel free to join us next week, Wednesday. We've got a Take 5 Live focused on the membership model of the future for associations, so would love to see you there. Thanks for your polling contributions. Thanks for participating today. I'm going to continue on. I'm going to move over to our question from Aaron Hoffman. Our organization has a membership and show attendee base of quote unquote veterans. We have people that have been coming to our show from the first show. Wow. They are now opting out of getting a full conference badge because they quote unquote know it all. We instituted consultation stations last year that were 1 to 1.5 minute sessions with an expert on a variety of topics. One-on-one 30-minute sessions with an expert on a variety of topics for folks to sign up for. We charged a fee and quickly found that we had to give them away to fill the spots. We got great survey results on the opportunity, but we don't want to keep giving them away for free. Any thoughts on how to introduce new ideas and opportunities to show with all the information they already are getting? We wanted this to be a way to introduce new revenue to our show that didn't come from exhibitors, but also offer education to the know-it-alls and bring them back in the fold. John, do you have any initial thoughts on that?
Well, obviously everyone's looking for new ways to generate revenue from their meeting. While this may in fact be an opportunity to do that, sometimes we have to give things a couple years to take off and to really get socialized with the group. The good news is you got some very high marks on satisfaction. That indicates that people found value in it. Maybe you should reevaluate the amount of the fee. Maybe it's not quite as expensive to participate this first year or this next year. But clearly there's value there. So it is certainly something you want to continue to do. You'll have to experiment a little bit with, I think, the pricing model, and maybe figure out, I would talk to the people very specifically that did attend, and maybe do some focus groups or some additional research with them to find out what could have made that even more valuable for them. Because again, when we find that there's when we hear people talk about cost and I don't want to pay for something, it generally means that I don't find value there. They're finding value. So what we have to do is make sure that we're delivering the kind of value for cost that people are willing to, again,
So I've got a couple of thoughts. And Aaron, thank you for, in summary, how do we keep the veterans and help them remain in the fold? Change is hard. Yeah. Absolutely. But thank you for the context you provided. So a couple of things. One is, I think you need to expand your thinking on how to bring new revenues into the fold and not necessarily only the annual meeting. I do agree with John. If this is a reflection, if there was real value on this one-on-one, but people were reluctant to pay for it, think of any consumer model. Every software application that's introduced is free as a starting point, and then you gradually build in paid members. You don't necessarily ping the old people that have attended before or have been a member before, but you gradually build the momentum over that base. I agree with John. I think what could be done to even take those one-on-ones to a bigger level? And I think it could be positioned also in a very bold way, kind of like think you know it all, guess again. I think even for some of these veterans, if you introduce new thinking and new concepts and new innovation, unless there's nothing happening in your professional industry, which I can't imagine, I would think that it would be very helpful. Here's the other thing. You go to veterans. I am a veteran. I would love to go so I could understand better how to leverage my professional social media networks like LinkedIn, and other areas. Like we didn't grow up with some of the technology. So from a technology advancement, which is personally going to enrich me as a professional, it may not be the content of my area of expertise, but it's going to help me expedite and do my job better.
I think that's a very interesting point, Max. And I think that while many professions are reticent to introduce content in their annual meeting that is not kind of endemic to their profession, to skills training and very specific to their profession. These soft skills, people may only have the opportunity to go to one event a year. And, we're made up, we're all looking for ways to be better people, not just better professionals. And so, leadership training, how do I learn to be a better leader in my organization? But also, as you said, those technology skills, how do I navigate social media today and things like that? That's why we see a lot of genius bars, set up in exhibit halls where people can just go up without embarrassment and ask about, how do I activate this iPhone, better? And how do I leverage this tool?
How do I download my photos?
Especially if I don't have grandchildren.
Okay, so listen, Aaron, thank you for the question. We would be happy to follow up with you one-on-one to provide some more context and texture around that so we can understand more about your audience. Happy to do that, absolutely. We don't have any other questions for today. For those of you that stayed on beyond Aaron, thank you. Please join us again next Wednesday. Appreciate it. Have a great day.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.